Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the weekly Dailey podcast. Today is Tuesday, June 20th. I am behind. I usually record these on the weekend, but had a busy weekend, and here I am recording the day before I put this out. So you guys are going to get the full up-to-date update. Should be good. I'm wearing a hat. This is the hat that I purchased for $30-something to try to transform my new look as my hair begins to thin. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Part of me is like, can I even pull this hat off? I can't tell if it's like I look kind of like try hard, or if it's just like kind of if it works okay, if I just look like a Colorado hiker. Not sure. You might notice also I've got, this is only for the people who are watching the video on YouTube. If you're listening, you're like, I don't know what he's talking about, but I also got my old glasses back. I didn't lose them. They broke, and I super glued them together. And here I am. So excited to have the old pair back. It was interesting doing stand-up. I was doing comedy with my other pair, which is like a very vanilla, just rectangular black pair. And it almost felt, I kind of wondered if it like gave off a different vibe to where, I don't know, if people, I think these blue ones make me look a little more goofy, silly, I don't know, a certain way that maybe presents myself and makes it a little bit easier to be well received or have people not take me too seriously on stage versus the others. I don't know. But glad to have these back. It's good to be here. It's a nice, hot, sunny day. Actually a little overcast at the moment, but it's supposed to be sunny later today. I'm trying to get this pod done. It's like midday, and as I've said before, I'm right beside the pool, which has been, it's not ideal living by the pool. It's the more the summer goes on, which has only been a couple weeks, I just feel like the oldest grandpa. Just really feeling the genetics of grandpa inside of me, wanting to go out and go, y'all quiet down now. Is that what grandpas say? I don't know, but this weekend was bad. There was a big group. There's a group that has been coming like every Sunday, and they've been partying, bringing a boombox real loud. And look, I'm not trying to be like too grandpa, but it's very, very obnoxious. I mean, I'm legitimately 15 feet from the edge of the pool, and or from the pool deck, at least, from the fence around the pool. And, these people come, they just get hammered. They blast the music. They were there for like 6 hours. My TV is right here. So I'm like 15 feet just listening to their music, not even the TV. And they had like a dog. They brought like a dog in there and just tied it to the fence. It was a pit bull. And, I'm not trying to be Mr. Narc, but you're not supposed to have dogs, you're not supposed to be drinking, and you're not supposed to be playing music. So they really struck out in my mind. And hopefully that doesn't happen every Sunday, because that was a bit of a bummer. I was planning on recording the podcast on Sunday, but honestly I didn't, because you would have just heard the music. And that would have probably lowered my viewership from like 9 to 3. I'd have 3 people who listened to 30 seconds and said, ooh, don't want to hear that music going on. But other than that, starting out on a real complaint there, it's been a good week. It's been fairly busy. I've had a handful of shows. What have I done? I did, not this last Sunday, 2 days ago, but the Sunday before that I did a brunch show at a venue called Wide Right. Did a 10-minute spot there. that was fun. I've said it in the past. I'm trying to work out some new material, and honestly, the more I've been doing the new material at shows and stuff, the more it's been affirmed in my head that I need to work harder. I've got some new jokes that I've got, memorized and quote unquote structured out to be bits or jokes. But, at the end of the day, most jokes that we write as comedians aren't going to be great. That's why it's important to just write a bunch of stuff, because at the end of the day, a lot of it's not going to be that great. So in order to get a lot of good stuff, you just have to write quite a bit. So that's what I need to work on. But that was a fun show. It's always good to do lower pressure shows. Not that I don't take them seriously, but it makes it easier for me in the position that I'm in to be more in the moment and just have fun with it and sell new jokes maybe a little bit better than if it's a high pressure show and you're trying to joke that's not that funny and you're not in the moment with it, then that's not a good recipe for a good set. But did that last Sunday, went to some open mics throughout the week. And what else did I do? On Thursday, I did a guest set at a Don't Tell show, which was nice. I've only done a couple of those, so it's always fun to be able to do those. Did like a 5-6 minute spot, something like that. So nothing too long. And honestly, this last week I've felt anxious and uncomfortable. It's a common theme that I feel like I've talked about on here. And it's not something that is talked about very much in the comedy community, I don't think. A lot of people aren't talking about like the behind the scenes mental side of things. In order to be funny, in order to be in the moment, you want to feel good yourself. And if you're not feeling great, if you're anxious, there's a million elements that could go into you feeling a little bit off, and then that turns into going on stage and not having an incredible set. Or, a big part of what we do is going with the flow. Best case scenario, the audience is great. You just tell your jokes, they laugh. That's awesome. But the reality is, that's not what a lot of it is. A lot of it is like the brunch show. It's middle of the day. People are eating. There's a little bit more importance in scenarios like that to be kind of in the moment, be a real person. If you just are robotic and do the jokes and aren't getting much, you have to be able to pivot. And I didn't feel, when I feel a little more anxious or a little bit more off on stage, it's a lot more difficult to pivot. And a little more difficult to brush off. Like if a joke doesn't work and you feel good, you're in the moment. We do this all the time. It happens quite a bit, and you just go with the flow. You go, all right, you didn't like that one, let me try this next one. But sometimes when you just don't feel good internally, mentally, anxious, a little bit off, then something like that will happen and you struggle to pivot. And it kind of feels like you're, at the beginning of comedy, like, oh, I just started, rather than I've done this over 1,000 times. You get used to situations like that, but just like anything, it was similar to learning a language where I felt like I would level up, and then there'd be days where I'd be like, I feel like this is my first day speaking Spanish. So it's an interesting thing that I'm constantly, I feel like I talk about it a decent amount and enjoy hearing other people's input and how they do it. And I know for me that I just got to be better at being in a solid routine of getting sleep, eating well, and exercising. And if I'm doing that, then it's much easier to go on stage and just feel good and go on stage and present yourself how you want to present yourself. It's easier to have, more mental clarity and focus to be able to memorize bits, say bits, sell bits. So yeah, that's this last week I have not felt good in that sense. So I've felt a little bit off. So again, just got to remind myself to make sure to take the time to go grocery shopping, to buy food, to make food at home, get enough sleep, go out and exercise. I mean, the weather's great. I have no excuse at this moment, in the sense that it's summer. I should just get up before work. I'm not very much of a morning person though, so it's very difficult. But yeah, I should be getting up before work. The sun's up. It's warm enough. So hopefully I can maybe get in more of a routine of that. But yeah, did the brunch show, did a Don't Tell guest spot. And then Friday and Saturday was very fun. I was at the Denver Comedy Lounge, which is a comedy club in Denver. Did 5 shows there, 2 shows on Friday, 3 shows on Saturday. Always have a good time doing the room there. It's a very, very cool room. Probably about a 75-person room, if I had to guess. It's a very cool vibe, like a very kind of tight room. The background on the stage, they have like trees. They actually like cut trees, and that's kind of the background. And up for the ceiling, it's like a lower ceiling, and they have like, it's kind of like AstroTurf, like green foresty type material that kind of hangs, and then little light bulbs. And it's a very cool atmosphere. Always enjoy getting to do a weekend at the lounge. Always have a good time there. But the shows were good. It's in like the back of a sake lounge, so it's kind of funny or not a sake lounge, a sake restaurant. So you walk in and you're like, oh, it's comedy at a sake place, but you actually go into a back room and it's a legitimate comedy club. They got the full setup there. It's very, very fun. I wanted to try to do not a bunch of new stuff, but I wanted to try to mix my setup since I did 5 10-minute sets throughout the weekend. And so it was cool to be able to test out a bunch of new jokes and do different sets. On Friday, the sets were okay. I tried to do like my best material one set, and I think the 9 o'clock show on Friday, I tried to do a bunch of new stuff, and the crowd was pretty tight. They weren't super, they weren't laughing a ton, but also the jokes I was trying out were, newer, weaker jokes, I would say. So I felt fine delivering it, but, to be objective and self-critical for myself, it wasn't incredible. It was fine, but, the jokes, you can tell, you go, these aren't the best jokes. But then Saturday was very fun. All 3 shows on Saturday were great. The 6 o'clock show, which is a little bit earlier for a lot of comedy shows, was great. Super fun. The 8 o'clock was great. And then the 10 o'clock, I was planning to try a new joke. I've talked about it on past podcasts here about the deep sea fishing story, going deep sea fishing for my brother's bachelor party. And it's like a 4-minute story, so it's close to half my set. The late show is technically the dirty show. I don't have a lot of dirty jokes. And this joke, it's not real dirty, but I guess it's like, has a little bit of, for me, quote unquote, dirty. But boy, did I do that, and it did not do well. Which was funny because the 10 o'clock crowd was probably the hottest crowd, the best crowd, and the comic before me just crushed. And so it was funny because I do this 4-minute story, and you've already seen, hey, the crowd is here to laugh, and you're like, all right, this is pretty good input about this deep sea fishing joke that maybe it's just not good enough of a joke to do at shows. Maybe I can work on it and work it out later, but as is, might not be good enough. But the funny thing about that set was I did that joke, and then I went into another joke, a joke I have about being a lifeguard, and I got heckled, and it actually ended up being like the crowd, very good interaction with the crowd and very good laughs, which was a fun way to end the set. Basically what happened is I have a joke about being a lifeguard and being, a teenager, and how it's kind of crazy that a lot of pools, like the business model is having teenagers be responsible for the people at the pool. It's pretty wild to just, here's minimum wage. You're like 16, be responsible for people's lives. And some guy in the back just yelled out, I won't say the word to keep it clean, but he goes, bull crap. And I was like, what? Like, it was pretty aggressive, actually. And I asked him, I was like, what do you even mean, bull crap? Like, what does that even mean? And he was like, some idiot like you saving people's lives. And the whole crowd was like, oh, like it was fun to play with the crowd. The crowd was laughing. It ended up being a good, I'll try to maybe clip it out and put it on Instagram. We'll see if I can take out some of the cursing. But also genuinely, and I said it during the set, I was like, I can't even see this guy in the back, but I feel like he's going to beat me up after the set. And, like, I'm joking about it, but I'm actually scared. Ha ha ha. But genuinely inside, I mean, it took me back to, kind of that fight or flight feeling where you get that, you're like, oh gosh, somebody might be trying to beat me up shortly. Or I don't know, is he going to charge the stage? It was a very, I'm not good with confrontation, so I don't like situations like that. And it ultimately was fine. He after I finished, he, gave me like a little, hey, I was just joking around, but I was still kind of like, it was a little aggressive, and I felt internally, I hope I didn't show it on stage, but I very much was like, ugh, I'm scared. I'm not trying to fight anybody. I'm not trying to, and I was just talking about a lifeguard. Like, it wasn't like I was roasting him in the crowd and he got upset, which can happen sometimes. So it was a very interesting dynamic, and something that as comedians and me personally, I haven't had to deal with much. When I first started and I wasn't very good at comedy, and maybe I was talking about some topics that were a little more divisive or not as clean or whatever, that would happen a little bit where maybe somebody in the crowd would be upset or say something, and at least in my head you go, okay, I get it. I was maybe being a little hateful or something. But now that I'm doing jokes, and I have been for a while, that are pretty not divisive at all, pretty much just silly jokes about like stuff that doesn't matter at all, to have somebody react like that, I was like, oh gosh. But yeah, maybe I'll post that. It was a pretty funny interaction, and yeah, it is funny. Just the thought of it. After I got off stage, I was talking to all the comics that were there over the weekend. Were very funny. It was cool to meet some of the out-of-town comics. And one of the out-of-town comics, the headliner, he was out of Cleveland. He was talking about like one of the worst he's ever bombed was doing a show where a guy was really drunk and talking in the front, and he kind of asked him to quiet down, and the guy in the front was like, basically like, no, man, I'm not going to shut up. You shut up, I'm going to shoot you. And he said, the comic told me, he's like, I just bombed for the next 20 minutes. He said everybody in the room was uncomfortable. And that's kind of, unfortunately, that's the fine line as comedians we have to ride sometimes. Where like, in my case, where the guy yelled out at me during the lifeguard joke and was like, some idiot like you saving people's lives. And everybody in the crowd was like, oh, like you could tell everybody was like uncomfortable. And I broke the tension and got laughs, fortunately. So I like battled through in an appropriate way, I think. But also, when somebody makes it a tense situation or heckles or something like that, in order to break the tension, sometimes you have to say something, or sometimes you say something that makes that heckler mad. Obviously, if they're yelling out already, and he seemed kind of upset about the joke anyways, then maybe it's easier, like you could say anything. And if you get a big laugh, they take that as like, oh, he won this battle. Now I don't like that, so I'm going to physically battle him or something. Which didn't happen for this, but that does happen sometimes. And so that's kind of a weird element that comedians have to deal with. It was fine here. The bouncer was like, nah, don't even worry, man. We're not gonna let them do anything like that. But that's because that was a club, has a bouncer, like it's run best case scenario. A lot of shows that we do, especially in the beginning, at breweries, at bars, at these places that there's not security, there's no bouncers. And I mean, a lot of the staff, if there even is anybody outside of just like a bartender, a lot of these places, like they don't care enough or they're not paying enough attention. So it really can you can be in a position where, I've talked to a lot of comedians, and if you listen to podcasts or have talked to comedians or heard of anything, you've probably heard as well stories of just nightmare stories where someone's like, yeah, dude, I had to walk out of a back door and like run to my car and just get out of that town or whatever the case is. Cause it's like, it's funny because at the end of the day, it's like, I'm just trying to tell some jokes. And sometimes it turns into like, oh my gosh, I was just trying to tell some jokes and these people or this person hated me and wanted to physically harm me, which is wild. I mean, could you imagine with other jobs, you're like an accountant and you go in and you're like, you know what? I crunched the numbers a little bit wrong, or like I did it in a way that my coworker didn't like. So he like came over and punched me in the face. Or he came over and he yelled at me in my cubicle and said that he was going to like bring a gun and shoot me. Like that would be insane. That would be so wild. And you'd be like, I'm not working here. But as comedians, we're like, we have to make people laugh, so we'll deal with this sometimes. But that was a very fun weekend. I had a lot of fun doing some different sets. Always good crowds there, full room. Very much appreciate being able to do weekend there, so that was very fun. Always look forward to doing the Denver Comedy Lounge. Then yesterday, or actually not yesterday. So that was basically the comedy shows I did throughout the week. A couple exciting things to kind of end on the comedy stuff. I'm not sure if I mentioned it in the last podcast, but coming up in July and beyond. So here recently, I think I've already mentioned this, but I'll be doing the Rise Comedy Festival in July. Also, I'll be doing the Tulsa, the Blue Whale Comedy Festival in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in July as well. And the Rise Comedy Festival, that's local in Denver. And then just here in the last couple of days, I got accepted to do the Last Best Comedy Festival in Bozeman, Montana. So very excited. I think I've said it before, but I feel, as cliche as this sounds, I feel very, very fortunate and lucky to have been accepted to a bunch of festivals this year. I mean, I don't know if it's 6 or 7, somewhere around there, that I will have been I've been accepted and will have done this year. And there's a handful more that potentially I could get accepted to, but feel very fortunate. My first couple years of comedy, I think I was selected in like 1 for 30. Granted, I've gotten much better at comedy, but still, it's a lot of people are applying. It's a very saturated market in a lot of ways. So, just part of the game is like low percentages, just like the rest of comedy, like getting in clubs and stuff. It's like, it's a lot of no's, and that's what it is. So it feels cool to have had a lot of yeses so far, to be able to have a reason to travel to a bunch of these places, get in, perform at some of these clubs, meet comedians from all over. So yeah, very excited for those, and very much looking forward to going back to Tulsa. I went there last year, really, really liked the city. So excited to go back there, and then excited to go to Montana for the first time and play the club there, the Last Best Comedy Club. So excited for the next couple months, for those festivals and just, shows in general. Have some fun shows coming up. So excited for that. Anyways, that's kind of the end of the comedy talk portion. Actually, one more thing with the comedy, just as far as what I'm working on. This week, I'm working on planning on working on a new joke. And the new joke is jumping jacks. I didn't want to do it at the Denver Comedy Lounge because I was like, I'm definitely getting beat up if I talk about jumping jacks. Not because it's divisive, but because it's very childish. No, it's just a silly joke about jumping jacks, about working out. In my apartment, I've been working out in my apartment more, and jumping jacks is like one of the couple exercises that I've been doing because it's smaller space. And jumping jacks, it's pretty. You feel a little silly doing jumping jacks. I shut the shades so people can't see when they're at the pool, when I'm jumping around. But good for limited space, good for cardio. I've written I don't know, maybe 2 to 3 minute bit. And as I've said before, I used to write stuff and take it to stage like immediately, like that night before I even have it memorized. And that's fine. You just do some reps and you get it memorized, but it's also pretty discouraging when you go fumble around and really don't present the joke at all how you want it. So over the last 2 weeks, I've written, edited, memorized, performed in front of the mirror. So I'm excited to go test it out in front of crowds and see if I can work it out, maybe make some changes after I get input from actual audiences. But that will be kind of the goal for the next week or two, probably working that joke out among probably others, but that'll be kind of the main one. So that is the end of the comedy portion, probably, I believe. Next, what I would like to talk about is what else I've been up to. And what else I've been up to has been watching a decent amount of golf. This last week was the U.S. Open, one of the majors in golf. And, it's been it was fun to watch. I used to only watch golf pretty much when Tiger Woods was playing. Grew up with Tiger Woods, huge fan of Tiger Woods. Obviously, he's older, he's hurt, he's not playing as often. So I wasn't watching golf as often if he wasn't part of it. But more recently, I've played a little bit more golf, gotten back into it a little bit, and I've been watching and enjoying watching. So I watched that. That's a big thing I did on Sunday. Like I said, I watched the U.S. Open while I just listened to music at the pool beside me. So that was cool to see people hit their drivers to Despacito. Not really. It was kind of obnoxious. But Wyndham Clark ended up winning. He's a Denver, Colorado native, so it was kind of cool to see a local guy win, a bit of an underdog, so it was cool to watch that. But I watched that on Sunday. I've also been watching a lot of YouTube videos. There's a lot of YouTube channels with golf, and it just makes me want to get back into it, watching people who are very good, playing different courses, people, whether it's just casual or competitive. There's a bunch of people who are playing, and I've been watching, and it's been cool to follow, and it gets those juices flowing. I pulled out, you can't see it on camera, but I have my pitching wedge against the wall because I've been practice swinging, watching some Instagram reels on tips of how to swing properly on the correct swing path, and so I've been doing that a little bit, but that's been it's kind of woken up an older passion that I had, one of my first passions, pursuing golf in high school, which was very fun. I don't know if I've talked about it in the past about I'm sure I've touched on it on past podcasts, but golf was one of my first. I think skateboarding was technically my first in middle school thing that I was very involved in. And then golf would have been probably the second thing, where most of high school, especially my last 2 years of high school, I was all in on golf. And I got pretty good at golf. I got down to a 2 handicap, which if you're not familiar with handicap, I'm not 100% either, but it kind of takes, you just put all your scores in a system, and it takes I think it takes the average of your top scores and kind of makes a handicap. So like a 2 handicap means like 2 over par for your better scores, I think. So all that said, I was for 18 holes, I was consistently shooting in the 70s, which was very fun to get that good. Now when I play, I haven't played as much, so I've kind of lost a lot of my skill set. But I got very good at golf with not a very good swing, a very homemade swing. Never did like the lessons, didn't have video cameras really back then to focus in. So I got pretty good with a pretty bad swing. Just had to get like very good at grinding it out, very good mental game. I just hit a bunch of bad shots, but like figure out a way to make par. But watching all these videos and, there's just so much access to swing tips and things to do. And with cell phones or video cameras, you can film yourself now. So, I don't know. I got to go out to the driving range. Maybe try to figure out how to get a little bit more consistent with a better swing. But that would be fun. I mean, watching some of the YouTube videos that I've watched and some people who are playing in tournament golf, it gets me. I used to play in tournaments, and that was always very, very fun. Just the competitive side of things, trying to test yourself in a higher pressure situation, and see how well you could do. It wasn't until like my senior year of high school that I actually I was starting to get decent. That was kind of the probably year. There's maybe 2 years where I played like some tournament golf somewhat consistently. I was a bit of a late bloomer when it came to golf. Didn't start playing golf until maybe like 9th grade. Tried out for the high school team, I think maybe 9th and 10th grade, or maybe just 10th grade. Didn't make it. I made it my 11th and 12th grade, so junior and senior year. And then thought about walking on or trying to walk on to my college team, but just didn't ever do that. Ended up going and just having fun with just normal college activities. But feel like right as I was kind of getting into, what is the phrase? Catching my stride, getting into my stride, figuring out how to be decent at golf. Right as that kind of happened, I kind of stopped playing consistently. So it would have been cool to see, and still could be cool to see, how well I could do. I mean, some of my fondest memories, or like best memories of tournament golf, let's see, what would they be? The best score I ever shot at my home course, London Downs in Forest, Virginia. I played there all the time. I shot 169, so I broke 70 once. I broke par one time from the tips, so the back tees. Shot 71. I think it was about 7,000 yards. So that, that's not quite as long as professional courses are nowadays, but, it's the back tees, the pro tees. So it's cool to shoot under par on that. But my best round, some of my best tournament rounds, there was a tournament called the Heritage. And it was probably the biggest tournament high school-wise that I ever played in. And I think it was like 26 teams. It was also at London Downs. And went out there and shot 74, so 2 over. Didn't shoot under par, but for a tournament setting with the pressure, felt very, very good about that. I remember making like 3 birdies in a row and just feeling, just one of those like miniature. It wasn't like, hey, those things you dream of where you make a putt to win the thing and you like run that through your head, but a little bit of that where you're like, you make 3 birdies in a row and you're like, wow, this is crazy. I'm in a tournament, made 3 birdies in a row. Ended up shooting 74. That was very, very fun. I ended up, what other tournaments? At the end of that year, I think it was the summer before I went to college. they have what's called the state junior, I think, state junior championship, where all the, like 18 and under, you can try to qualify. I went to Danville, Virginia with a handful of friends and uh, went to try to qualify. There's a bunch of kids who try and they take the top handful of scores. And boy, I remember at that point, my game was really falling apart. I was in a really, really bad period of playing. And I remember going there and just going, you know what, Ben? It's going to be ugly. It's not going to be good. It's probably not going to be fun. But you got to just figure out a way. And I did. I shot 74 there as well and got, in the top couple or whatever to be able to qualify for the state tournament, which was 3 rounds. And I didn't play particularly well there. It was a very tight course on a mountain at Wintergreen Mountain. And so I had to take a bunch of iron. My driver, I could not keep it in play. And this was a very tight course. So, I was taking irons off most tees and just making the course long and more difficult. I didn't putt very well. But I think I shot like 80, 78, 82 or 84. Not great, but, my game was not very good. It had kind of fallen apart, like I said, during that time frame. So it was cool to just be able to qualify for it, to be able to do that. Obviously, since it was for 18 and under, that was my last chance at being able to do it. So that was very fun and a cool memory to have as far as the golf world goes. And then that was around that was right before college. And once I got to college, I pretty much fell off with golf. When I came back, I didn't really play golf at all during school. And then when I came back home during the summer, I tried to qualify for the state amateur. So similar to the state junior, it's, you just a bunch of people are trying to qualify. It's 36 holes in one day. So a lot of golf. And I played at Winton, a course in Amherst, Virginia called Winton, 36 holes. It was crazy. I didn't play all year. And then I came back and maybe played a handful of rounds to practice for the qualifier. But played very well. 36 holes is 8, 9, 10 hours of golf. Physically, it's demanding. Mentally, very demanding. Truly, if you're not conditioned for 10 hours of focus, obviously that can affect you. But my first 18, I shot 72, and then I shot 80 the second 18. So I didn't qualify, but I played a good first round and, hung in as much as I could. But that was cool to kind of just to think back and be like, wow, I was kind of maybe a little bit of a far shot, but kind of in the mindset of I could potentially qualify for these tournaments. And, it's cool to kind of be good enough to even try to do those things. But who knows? Maybe I'll start golfing a little bit more and get a little bit more of that desire back to improve my game. And long term, would love to be a touring comedian doing well enough to where I'm traveling to these places and playing around a golf, on the road before doing shows. And so kind of be able to devote a lot of time to getting better at golf while doing comedy as well as a job. So we'll see. It's always, you can always dream, but I think that's attainable. It just might not be for a little while, but it is tough watching all these videos and seeing the new clubs and kind of new equipment and stuff. And all my clubs, they were decent when I got them, but everything that I have, I bought in 2005. Everything is almost 20 years old. So pretty dated equipment, but also golf equipment is expensive. So I'm definitely not trying to watch a couple videos, get excited, and then pay $2,000 to buy some new irons and drivers. So, yeah, that's kind of, what I've been up to here recently. The weather is getting warmer. It's been raining so much. I say that every time, but the rain has been unbelievable. Like the last couple months, so much rain, which has not been common here for Denver. But um, I guess the only thing that's been nice potentially about the rain is makes it less likely that people will go to the pool. And people, boy, man, it's like I said, I feel like the oldest grandpa ever, just wanting to yell at young kids who are being loud, just having a good time, which is what, that's what the pool's there for. So I have to remind myself that. Be like, what do you can't pull the hat off if you're going to yell like you're a grandpa, you know? But, yeah, so golf, comedy. I've been working new job as well, trying to plan for future travels and dates with the festivals and shows in general. What else? I mean, I've got maybe a couple more minutes I'll try to fill out here. I'm trying to think of anything else. The reels, Instagram reels. I gotta keep. I say it every time. I gotta get off social media. But yeah, it's tough. But while I'm on it, maybe a couple of these reels I can get on there and get some views. I don't know. I hate saying that because it sounds so artificial, which it is. But that's the world we live in. If you can get some traction on social media, it certainly helps to get in at clubs and things like that. But one weird thing. I'll end on this. Little story going back to the brunch show that I did. Not this last Sunday, but the Sunday before. Did the brunch show. Did my 10-minute set or whatever. Got off stage and had possibly the weirdest interaction I've ever had with someone after a show. A female, a lady, a girl, I don't know, she's probably in her 20s, came up to me after. By the way, I've been told that saying female is disrespectful. And if there are any ladies listening to this podcast, I'd love for you to comment and let me know. Is saying female, is that disrespectful? I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just trying to describe a situation. I feel like if I say girl, that's fine, but that sometimes people are like, are you talking about a child or an adult? I'm talking about an adult. So I don't know if that's confusing. I feel like lady, I don't know. What am I supposed to say? Is female, if I say a female came up to me, is that disrespectful? And if so, why is it disrespectful? I mean, I get if someone was like a male. Yeah, I guess if someone's like a male came up to me, I can see being like, that's weird that you would say a male. But not disrespectful, just maybe weird. But then guys, like, for dudes, you could say like dude or guy. Whereas for a female, a girl, like if you said kind of the equivalent, like chick, I feel like chick is viewed as disrespectful nowadays. I don't know. What is the proper verbiage I'm supposed to use? Comment below. Let me know. Am I a terrible person for saying female? Anyways, this girl came up to me after my set and she goes, "Hey, sorry I missed your set. I was in the bathroom and the toilet was clogged, so I couldn't come out." And I was like, okay, that's, I didn't really need to know that, but that's cool, I guess. And in my head, I was like, there's no way she's telling me that she clogged the toilet. She's just describing probably like the toilet was broken, so I wasn't able to see her set. But then she clarified a couple minutes later by basically saying like, you know how it goes, just sometimes you gotta poop. And I was like, you're a stranger, lady. I don't look. I get I'm a comedian, and also she was not trying to make a joke. Some people were like, maybe she was trying to make a joke. You're a comedian. Maybe she was trying to be fun. It was like dead serious. This was the situation. Sorry, I missed your set. I had to poop. And look, I don't, whatever. But also, why are you telling me this? Like, this isn't something that I would, if I clogged a toilet, you better believe I'm not telling anybody. Maybe I tell my best friend. And if I do, I'll probably tell my best friend. But it's probably not right after I do it. It's probably after I've left the establishment to be like, ugh, glad we got out of there. Just had an issue in the bathroom. But that's, I think she might have been like, I don't know if she was trying to hit on me or not, maybe, but if she was, that's like the funniest way to shoot your shot. Just being like, hey, sorry I missed your set. I just pooped so much it didn't go down the toilet. Nice to meet you. What's your name? Like, what are we talking about? That was hilarious. And then I had just the most awkward see you later. Like I dapped up everybody around, and then she went like this, which if you're just listening to the audio, she like put her arm out, like what I assumed was like going for a hug, which again was weird, but I was like, whatever. If this is what it is, I'll just do it, make it less weird by just accepting the hug. And then it wasn't a hug, it was a high five, and we proceeded to do the most awkward whatever high five. And yeah, that was pretty funny. That was pretty interesting. Appreciate anybody coming up to me after the show saying that they either saw it or that they wish they would have seen it. But I thought that was pretty funny. Anyways, I'm gonna end the podcast there. If you guys made it all the way through the podcast, leave a comment below saying golf. Also, just leave a comment. Any questions, any thoughts, any different formats, let me know. Any additional engagement on the podcast would be nice. Would love to chat back and forth. But yeah, thanks so much for listening. And I'll catch you guys again next week on the next episode.